up, War Rapport family? We are back with another great edition of Building Rapport. Today, I have a very special guest and kind of a unique segment for you guys. We've talked a lot about name and likeness, and today, joining me from NIL Auburn is Rick Davidson, President, CEO of NIL Auburn. He's here to talk to us about what they're doing and how NIL Auburn is going to support student athletes at Auburn University. Rick, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Mike. It's a pleasure to be able to talk about this topic with you and all the Auburn supporters.
Well, look, Rick, I want to jump right in here. You guys are, a lot of fans are confused about NIL and what's allowed and what's not allowed. I want to start with you telling us a little bit about NIL Auburn, how you guys got started and what your mission is.
We started back in, early fall, late summer last year, trying to get an understanding of what was permissible, what was impermissible, and a real solid basis for doing NIL work and learning the protocols, working with compliance at Auburn University. We also have hired some really talented lawyers that have handled countless NCAA cases, a really well-respected firm in Kansas City, to make sure we built the structure right to protect the athletes. And the entire focus of NIL Auburn is to protect the athlete and to promote the athlete and to maximize the return that athletes can get for their name, image, and likeness, and to do it in ways that help them navigate the various people in the ecosystem, agents, the Auburn University itself, sponsors, and advertisers. Those are all people that we have to work with. And of course, then there's the donor piece, the booster piece, where for decades that any kind of exchange there was obviously prohibited. And we worked real hard to stay away from that. And now we're working really hard to encourage it and make it viable and make it compliant. And we've built a structure that we feel confident can do that.
Well, let's talk about that booster piece for a second, because we all know there are businesses out there looking to invest in athletes, and it sounds like they can do that through NIL Auburn as well. But the booster piece is something that's really new and I think really unique. Tell us about the booster structure and how fans can get involved on a booster level.
Absolutely. We have built a subscription platform that allows fans, supporters, boosters to pay any dollar figure they wish into our system. And they can purchase 1, 2, 3, 500 subscriptions. They can purchase them. We give them to, if they say, here's 500 names, I want you to give these away. Fine. If they say, I want to buy 10 subscriptions and I want to give 10, we can give them away. But we literally can take any denomination, any dollar figure that someone's interested in purchasing NIL, which is a separate pot of money. And if you will, bear with me, you have subscribers that can fund purchases of NIL, and they're buying access to our donor pool. They're buying the benefits we've assembled, which in the NIL world are really come in three pots. Merchandise is one of the ways an athlete can sell their name, image, and likeness. Autographs, T-shirts, hats, items like that, autographed the balls and bats. Then there's digital merchandise, digital NIL, which is tweets and posts and virtual meet and greets and live streams and podcasts like we're doing today. That's digital NIL. And then the most valuable NIL, Mike, is really personal appearances for a company, or at your tailgate, or teaching your son or daughter a lesson, or calling your grandchild on their birthday. Those personal one-on-one, one-on-five interactions are really high value NIL that we purchase from our athletes and then resell for them. That a collective, as this thing is evolving, is really, really defined as a group that pays a certain amount for inventory and then tries to backfill it, and recoup those funds that have been extended through contracts to those athletes. So the way the system works is athletes sign up with our company and we pay them a monthly figure based on their estimated market value. That is what we think the boosters, the subscribers, the advertisers, and everybody in the ecosystem will pay to access their NIL. And then we go back, we set that contract, they get on a monthly payment. Now we're trying to resell all of those NIL opportunities that we've assembled. Some 92 athletes right now under contract with us in our talent pool. We're trying to sell that to fulfill those financial commitments we've made.
Hmm. So, Rick, you guys are providing a unique opportunity for fans to get involved, at whatever level they can be involved. You mentioned that an individual donor can choose which particular athlete they want the money to go to, or it can just go to a pool that you guys then decide to, distribute amongst athletes.
Well, the way that would work is when you come to subscribe with us, you can designate which team you want to support. If you're going to be a sponsor of a particular athlete or an advertiser with a specific athlete, that's the way funds are directed at one particular member of our talent pool. But if you say I'm going to give $250,000 and buy that much NIL, you have to direct it and can direct it across all teams, all sports. If you want to buy an exclusive sponsorship and say, I want these 10 athletes to just sponsor my barbecue house uh, in Auburn, Byron Smokehouse, for example, then we would contract and go exclusive with those 10 for the barbecue. They'd be they'd be exclusive to any other barbecue restaurant. They couldn't hire those 10. So we could direct money directly to specific athletes, and then there would be other funds out of that $250,000 that would be spread over all the other contracts to backfill those obligations as well. So there's several ways to get into this NIL purchasing um, of benefits world.
Now, tell me a little bit about if an athlete signs up with NIL Auburn, are there any? Is it exclusive? Can they still sign outside sponsorships outside of NIL?
Yes, they can at this time, and I'll tell you why, Mike. When we first got started, there were already lots of little deals going on out here and there, and we didn't want to, inhibit anybody from a contract they'd already signed, taking those monies and performing those obligations and fulfilling that contract. There'll come a time when we do sign everybody exclusively, and here's why. We believe in NIL Auburn that we're going to be able to provide an estimated market value that is substantial, and it's in a manner and an amount that would eliminate your need to go do 10 other small deals.
Yeah.
And the idea, again, remember, if the athlete's at the center, if our talent is at the center of our world, we want to maximize their training time, their education time, they're taking care of their bodies and recovery time, and minimize the intrusion that NIL causes to their daily life. So if we can establish a market value that's high enough that they say, look, I don't need to do two or three other or five or six other deals to get where I need to be, we've just really, really met our duty to those young men and women. And so when we sign them exclusive, it's also going to drive their value up because now we get to decide, hey, you can't just give it away for $100 for a fishing pole.
Right.
You're worth more than that. And it's going to take a little more evolution before that comes together. But every day we're learning more and more about it. And I would tell you that there's ways to get exclusive as to certain advertisers and vendors. If people are interested in paying for that, our athletes are interested in not advertising for other people.
Mm. So let's say a company approaches an athlete with a potential sponsorship opportunity. Can the athlete in turn say, hey, I want you to go through these guys to set this up?
Absolutely. And that's part of what we've offered to all of them. And I get calls. I've gotten two over the weekend from two of our baseball players to say, hey, so-and-so approached me about a deal to do T-shirts. I said, go get it by all means, let them do them. If y'all are good with it, I'm good with it. Because we've learned in this world, the merchandise piece is not the most profitable piece for our athletes. And if other people are going to bear those costs for them, then let them do that. And then they'll share a little bit of the profit with you. And so it's one of those passive things that I hope they make tons of money on it, but I don't mind helping them with that. And then if they send me the agreement and the contract, we look it over, we give them our guidance, and they know we're available to do that for them on anything they're approached about.
Awesome. So let's talk a little bit about compliance here. So
Sure.
Compliance is an important piece of this, and I think maybe a really good role that you guys play now in this new NIL era. So the university's role is compliant, making sure that deals are compliant with state law and there's no pay for play essentially in place.
Correct.
That there's an actually legitimate business transactions that's happening with that deal. Walk us through the process. You get a deal for an athlete. You
Okay.
sign that. The athlete. You review the deal, and then do you guys then take that directly to the university compliance office? Like, what's the next step in the process of finalizing that deal?
So as it stands now, the athlete is approached either by us when we're buying their NIL or another advertiser, and before the contract's executed, it's finalized, and then they disclose it through a software that the university compliance officers can look at, and they can view it. They can comment on it if they want to the student athlete. But before it's signed, they get a period of time to look at it and review it. So we make sure that happens. Then we sign with them, and then the real work in compliance comes after a deal is signed, and that is, are they fulfilling their obligations that they just signed up to do? And we have a very well-developed, very deliberate system that tracks compliance for all of our 92 individuals under contract. So we can look at a given time and say, this person's only performed 40% of their fulfillment obligations. They're in their competition season, so we're not really worried that they're not going to be able to fulfill it within the year. They're fine, they're compliant, and they still keep getting paid. If they're 20% in fulfillment and their 80% of the year has gone by, they're going to be not terminated, but their payments would stop and cease until they can catch up with their fulfillment. So that is the biggest part of compliance that we've built in our system that protects pay for play, because as you've said, and we all know, you can't, it's not as simple as walking in and handing somebody $50,000 and saying, War Eagle, go get them. There has to be a true exchange of fulfillment and content and obligations in exchange for the money they've been paid. That's what our system has been very deliberate about and structured. And I don't think people need to lose sight of the fact that we don't pick NIL Auburn or any other collective at Texas A&M or anywhere else. Those businesses are not deciding who gets offered a scholarship, who keeps a scholarship, who's the starting quarterback, who's the starting Friday night pitcher. Those things are all still very much in the coach's control. And we're here as a third-party independent business to then purchase the NIL of those fortunate student athletes that make it to our campus, so that we can then help market them, make them successful, and truly give them the value that they deserve for their name, image, and likeness. But it is not pay for play. There's a lot of human resources that are devoted every day in our office to compliance and fulfillment. And it's a major part and should be of every collective. And I can't speak for any other one, because I hadn't been inside their operations, but all of us have started in different ways. Some started with a big sack of money, and then they're figuring out compliance as they go. Some of us started with compliance and focused on the structure and the people within the staff. And now we're focused on the money piece to fulfill our contract. So everybody's going to have to deal with compliance and do it right. And at some point, I'll be proud that our system has been developed the way it has, and it will stand up in that area.
You said two things that I want to stick in fans' minds: compliance and fulfillment.
Yep.
So that if an athlete ever gets to a point where the fulfillment piece isn't happening, NIL Auburn cuts off the payments to that athlete to protect their eligibility and keep them in compliance.
That's correct. I mean, I hate to say it, but we sent out notices at the beginning of the month, this month, and there was a number of people on it. And by the time we got around to the cutoff date, there was only 2 left. So they get it, and they're starting to be acclimated to it. And fortunately for us, we're located in a private building, but on campus at Auburn. It's in the research park. We're 2 blocks away from where a large percentage of our talent lives, so they can get here. And they can come by in an hour and do a bunch of fulfillment on their off day or between classes, or after they've met their study and team obligations, and we make it efficient for them. But we can really help them make sure they're compliant. And I'll tell you, when I talk to the moms and dads, How's he doing in compliance? What's he doing? I talked to one of our basketball coaches' moms last night, and thanking us for what we're doing and how's it look moving forward. And I explained that process to her, and she said, well, I understand very much the compliance piece, and you have my blessing. If he's not complying, you let me know. And it really is an effort by everybody in the ecosystem to guard pay for play and protect that eligibility.
Awesome. Let's talk a little bit. You guys are NIL Auburn. The name might confuse some people,
Sure.
but you're not actually a physical arm of the university. You guys are a separate business entity, an LLC that's set up to do this. How is your company's relationship with the university? Are you in contacts with them daily? What's the communication between you guys and the university like?
It's evolving every day. So as everybody gets more comfortable with where the lines have to be drawn and are comfortable, everybody's following that, we have more and more discussions. One day I may be discussing with our advancement office and alumni affairs about how we're going to try to access alumni groups in Houston and Nashville and DC, and how do we get the word to them and work as a vendor like any other vendor would work that's a third party that wants access to those groups. The next day, I'm obviously talking to compliance or to even the coaches. And it's not like we don't have a relationship with coaches or talk to them. But what does not happen, cannot happen, is a coach come into our office and sit down when I'm negotiating the purchase rights of the NIL with that student athlete, his mom, his dad. That doesn't happen. But they can and very much be involved in the process of letting people know, hey, this is who is doing this in our community. They're down the street. Here's their office. Here's their phone number. We can't be involved in it. But if you want to know what the protocol is, what you're going to be asked to do, how your fulfillment's going to look, this is who you call. And there's nothing wrong with that. So as that line becomes brighter and brighter, and we're all more comfortable knowing what that is, then we have more and more communications. And it's, obviously still within the rules that we don't offer an inducement to somebody that's not already here to get them here. And we don't offer a benefit that's impermissible. But we all kind of communicate on a daily basis. But it's very important for everybody to understand this is a company that's an independent company. It's just like Auburn Sports Properties that buys the rights to advertise in the stadium and on the radio shows, and they have the right to use those facilities and put advertising in the arena and in the baseball stadium. And for that, they then guarantee the university a certain amount of money. Well, we don't do that. We don't guarantee the university anything. We're guaranteeing athletes payments. But in exchange for those rights, then the media rights holder has to go out and sell more advertising than what they paid Auburn. Mm-hmm. Well, we're very similar in business model in that we have to go sell more NIL than what we're paying our talent. Now, the big difference is, though, that's a for-profit business that really usually wants to maximize the profits. We do too, except we're more like a mega church. Our profits are going back into the mission field, which in our case would be the pockets of the student athletes. Mm-hmm. So what profit we make over and above what we have to pay our staffs and pay for our advertising and things we have to do really fulfills those contracts to student athletes. So we're more like a not-for-profit company. That's different than a nonprofit.
For sure.
But at the end of the day, profit here is more money available to buy NIL. And that's the name of the game for us.
Man, that's great. You guys seem to be entrenched in the community. I like the piece that you talked about where it's conveniently located for athletes to be able to get to you easily, fulfill all their NIL obligations, mostly in one spot,
sure,
and then get back to their other student athlete obligations that they have that day. That's really great. So talk to me a little bit. Let's talk differentiation.
Okay.
What sets NIL Auburn truly apart from maybe structures that are set up, at other institutions?
Well, it's hard to say because it's such a new industry and not everybody's out there telling all how they're operating. So mm-hmm. We hadn't had a big convention yet where all the NIL collective directors and staff get together and say, all right, this is how we're doing business. So it's hard for me to say. I can say that I think obviously how you got started is a big differentiation. If you got started with, here's a pile of money, now figure out how to spend it right, that's one way. For us, it was, hey, let's figure out the way to do this structurally and compliantly, and make sure we have the right lawyers, we have the right staff, we've got people with experience in recruiting that know what the rules are, people who have experience in social media. Let's make sure the team is right, and then we'll add funding and more athletes. So I think distinguishing factors currently are just how you got started, really. For us, a lot of places, former development officers at those institutions would either be asked or would take the initiative and go start a collective. Here, I'm a local lawyer. I grew up in Auburn. I was born and raised here, went to high school here, played baseball here. Frank Thomas used to say, Rick, you just nothing but a steak, bus rider and a steak eater. And he was right. I didn't play. I'm 0 for 3 in my Auburn career, but it's in my blood. My dad worked at Auburn for over 50 some years, attended 700 straight Auburn games without missing. So my initial view of why this was important was because the baseball team at Auburn is at a huge disadvantage compared to most teams in the conference and in the country, because as everybody only gets 11.7 scholarships, but we don't have a lottery in Alabama. So when other states have the ability to recruit kids in state and they come to their institution and the lottery money pays their tuition and books, that 11.7 doesn't have to be spent on that. So their money goes twice as far. And Coach Thompson and Coach Nunemaker, Gabe Gross, they figured it out that, hey, even with those limitations, we're competitive as we can be, and we've got a great product to sell, but we're at a financial disadvantage. So that was my initial reason to try to learn, what can you do with NIL? How can this help Auburn baseball? But the structure to help Auburn baseball helps Auburn soccer, and it helps Auburn gymnastics, and it helps Auburn football. So the structure is the same, and that was how we got started. And I think that's the biggest distinguishing factor right now amongst collectives is who started it, why did they start it, and what did they start with?
Right. You guys are doing something I think that's ultimately going to be really great and will probably be a model that we see copied, at other schools. So it's always nice to be a trendsetter and get out there and be at the forefront of getting things together. So, where we're at right now is, you've created a company that is a separate, its own thing. It's its own company. You guys are working with athletes to help with compliance and fulfillment. You're educating athletes on the process of getting a sponsorship deal and, again, fulfilling those obligations. I want to talk a little bit about the financial education for the athlete. So, what is NIL Auburn doing for athletes to help them understand? Here's what your tax liability is going to be on this deal, or here's what you have to file at the end of the year. Like, what are you guys doing with athletes on that regard?
So an essential part of our platform, and we just had a reminder of that this week go out that says, look, most of you didn't opt to have taxes taken out to start with, but as we changed payment processors, we're reminding you and we're recommending to you, let us take those taxes out of every check, let the payment processor hold them and remit them quarterly so that you don't have a tax bill at the end of your 12 months. And it obviously involves questions, and then we send the exact amount that their check needs to be reduced by, and we say, look, we can reduce it, or you need to reduce it and put it in a savings account, but this is what it's going to cost you every month. So that is a real education piece just in and of itself, the actual logistics and process of those quarterly estimates. And this is the second time we've kind of been through that, trying to educate. And I think that's a big one. That's the first one, is you don't want to start out with a system and a process that leaves that out. So we've educated on the front end. We're re-educating again. And the difficult part, Mike, is these young men and women are all adults. They're all legally able to contract. And they can choose, as we could when we were 19 and 20 and 21, to not do some things that mom and daddy told us we should have, or a trusted friend, or even a coach, right? So helping them understand the importance of it is our job. We're doing that. Doesn't mean they're always going to choose to follow the advice, but it does mean that we take very seriously that duty, and we have a system that can really help them, not to mention other educational opportunities that are coming in. Here's one of the great things, Mike. If a sponsor like a bank or even a financial planner says, look, I really care about Auburn and I want to spend X amount of dollars buying NIL, they can literally come in and purchase the exclusive right to be the financial planner that once a quarter we send a Zoom call and everybody has to attend, and that's fulfillment because that person bought the right to access that pool. Right. So now we've got a fulfillment opportunity that's also educational, and it was a sponsorship.
Wow.
So you line those three things up, and there's $250,000 that comes in to buy NIL, buy the attendance at a personal appearance, an educational opportunity, and everybody benefits in the ecosystem. So, those sponsorship opportunities are out there. That is our next focus after we launch our new Make a Play campaign will be who else can make a play in those kind of ways.
The education piece I really like because financial education is so important for a lot of these kids who are going to be suddenly coming into a lot of money and that they've never had to manage before, and knowing what to do with taxes and things of that nature, I think is a really great benefit to signing up with NIL Auburn. I want to pivot a little bit here to talking about how you guys are going about signing up athletes and what happens when an athlete that signs up with you is no longer at Auburn University. What do you guys have? How are you guys going out and getting these athletes, and what are an athlete's options if they decide to transfer out?
Sure. Well, obviously, word of mouth and our ability to be on campus and close helps us be easily accessed by the athletes. They find us, and it's not very hard. And we can reach out to them if we get approached about a deal, a certain advertiser, a certain retailer. We've had several of those that say, hey, I need 3 people to do X. I pick up the phone and call them and say, look, this is an opportunity. If you want to talk about it, call us back. And usually people in our world know who we are. Mm-hmm. And that's not been a difficult part of the process at all. The second part of that is, and tell me again exactly what the piece after how they find us is. What would you ask next, Mike?
Well, I want to know, they find you, like, what's the process like? Are you guys going out and like recruiting athletes, or, do they find out from you guys from university? Is it allowed? Can a coach on a recruiting visit talk about NIL Auburn?
Absolutely. There's nothing that prohibits them from talking about it as long as I'm not in the room or any of the members of our company are in that room talking about deals. I think every coach now either is asked in the first or second minute of a conversation with the first student, tell me about NIL and do you have it? Yes, we've got it. NIL Auburn's the company doing it now at Auburn. Here's the name and number. They can really tell you what that's going to look like. What we're not going to tell them is a number that we're going to pay them if they're not yet on our campus as an enrolled student. So we have to be very mindful of that. And that's the law, that's the line that we draw and that the coaches draw to protect everybody. But I'll tell you this, I think in this day and time, it's a very, very small world, and 92 people under contract at Auburn, they have a contract in their hand, and who they share that information with is up to them. We've asked them and all not to we've said this is confidential, keep it to yourself. But I don't think that when these athletes, they want to compete, Mike, they want to win. They want the best players to come join their team. Mm-hmm. Tank wants the best receivers, the best quarterback, the best lineman. He wants Auburn to be great. He's going to do whatever he can to recruit and help. They're our best salespeople, and it's awesome. And they're so good at it. They're a lot better than, I would ever be. You asked a question about what happens when somebody's no longer at Auburn.
Yep.
Because I've bought their name, image, and likeness, I'm still under contract with them, and I keep paying them. The only thing that would stop me from paying them is if they don't do their fulfillment. Okay. So if you stop fulfilling the things we need you to do, you're not going to get paid. But if I was just paying you to be at Auburn, that'd be pay for play, and that's illegal. Exactly. And that's a problem. Our contracts do not include any language that says, you stop living in Auburn and you stop wearing the orange and blue, you no longer get paid. What our contract says is you do your fulfillment, you meet your obligations to the company, then you get your monthly payment. When you stop, you may not get paid.
Right. So if they stop, is there a period of time that can pass where the contract is officially terminated, or
right? We would
say,
yeah, you haven't fulfilled in the last 2 months. We've stopped your payments, but if you hadn't shown any intention of doing this, we're going to terminate the agreement. Our contracts are 1 year.
Okay.
So, nobody's going to get too ahead of us, and we're not going to get, in a bad situation there. Everybody, we want to have a great experience, and we want to really help them maximize their earnings in NIL, but people have reasons to leave an institution or leave, and not want to perform those obligations. And we understand and respect that. And we're going to still have a system that protects them if they leave, because they're not going to have been given something that they didn't earn because they didn't perform. So our hope is that, that's where we still protect them.
Yeah. How often do you guys have to report to the university on fulfillment?
Never.
Okay.
That's not any of their business.
Okay.
That's a private relationship between me and my clients. And you have to understand too, that I might be paying somebody under market value, right? So let's just say a student, hypothetically, a member of our talent pool gets $500 a month, but they're really worth $10,000 a month. Well, if they do 3 things for me in fulfillment that really equal market value, because they're so much more higher valued, they've met all the fulfillment I need them to do.
Okay.
But that's such an individual thing on an individual basis that it's hard to, it would be impossible for somebody to really say that is or isn't market value, right?
Right. So you get a high profile quarterback sign up with you, and his market value may be different from
no question.
Like a walk on wide receiver.
No question.
And his one has more fulfillment obligations to meet the dollar amount being paid than somebody who has a higher market value.
Correct. And we're still learning that, where the sweet spot is, right? I mean, some of the folks that we signed up very early, we were anxious just to get contracts in their hand to know that we could have a model and it would work. So they were way underpaid in market value.
Right.
Now, I can't give any specifics, but we've had some successful teams this year. And in that case, we would have gotten a lot more for our money than they did. As we look at it, that's going to change in this next contract cycle, right? And so we get closer and closer to knowing what those numbers are in, I'd say, 24 to 36 months.
Well, it sounds to me like the university's responsibility is to create a winning culture that ultimately will make those contracts more valuable, is what I hear you saying. So if you win, right, it's more valuable.
That's right. So, it's kind of like the waiter and the waitress doesn't have any control over how good the kitchen is and how good the food tastes, but their tip's going to be based on how the meal went, right? No matter how hard they're working.
Sure.
We're going to work really hard and hopefully have a system in place that keeps people, young men and women, interested in coming to Auburn, because the NIL obligation is being met and being met well. But we ultimately don't have any control over if we go for it on 4th and 1 or not, and those decisions are always going to be coaches. They're always going to be evaluating talent. They're going to always be making game time adjustments and playing who they think's best. And ultimately, it's our job to make sure that the people who have the privilege to play at Auburn are getting absolute maximum market value. And what happens if we're doing that well, Mike, then I think the results are there, right?
Mm-hmm.
The results will be there. But I can say this, because of my experience in baseball, Auburn University's degree, and this is stuff that kids now really have to think about, because when you're 17 and 18 making your mind up, before you just thought about, I'm going to Auburn, I'm going to the next level, right? Well, now everybody probably knows there's going to be a handful that go to the next level, and I mean a small handful. So what is that degree worth? What is Auburn's value in the marketplace when I leave with that degree?
Mhm.
And I think if you do the math, you look at all the rankings, I think Auburn and Vanderbilt and Auburn are the top two in our conference. Okay. What does that say? It says we got a heck of a product we're selling here. Then you look at the happiest places to attend school. I want to be somewhere that I'm liked, that I'm happy.
Mhm.
That has value that complements what we do with NIL.
Oh, wow.
So we're a part of the total package that Auburn's offering. We had 44,000 applications for incoming freshmen to attend Auburn University this year. 44,000, highest ever. We got something great that people want. And the NIL piece is a very important part now that is new, and we got to be great at it. And the time is now. We can't wait till September after they've kicked off the first few games to get great at it. We've got to fund it today. But it is an important piece of the equation for our coaches to be able to go sell. And they can't sell the number, and they can't negotiate the deals, and that's up to us to do it well. But it is an important piece of the whole product that we have here at Auburn.
Well, let's talk about how fans can get involved and how they can get signed up. NILAuburn.com. I'm going to NILAuburn.com, and I'm looking for options, and I want to get signed up. What do you guys offer for fans, or will you offer for fans to get signed up, and what does that look like from the booster side?
Absolutely. So whatever level you think you want to participate in, we can start you at either $1,000 a month or $10,000 a year. You get 2 months credit if you write one check for $10,000. $500 a month or $5,000 a year if you write one check. $2,500 a month, or $2,500 a year, or $250 a month. Right now are our three levels. Mm-hmm. If you want to give $200,000, I'm going to sell you a larger number of subscriptions. If you want to buy 10 subscriptions and sponsor $100,000 worth of content, or buy a specific student athlete or talents appearances at things, we can arrange that too. So those are opportunities there. But I'm really excited about, and we're getting ready to launch, and you're the first that's going to hear it publicly, our Make a Play campaign. Okay. And I don't want to steal too much thunder about it, but there's really an exciting period coming up where we're going to use that theme throughout the 22-23 year. And there's some neat stories that'll be told about making plays, not only at Auburn, but how the new way to make a play is for Auburn fans. And with that, we'll be able to offer a $100 a month subscription and a $30 a month subscription. Okay. And when I talk about the $30 one, listen, we can't compete at the championship level if everybody signs up for $30. We've got to have the $10,000, the $1,000 a month in great measure. But I didn't ever want to be a part of a system that couldn't do both. Absolutely. And I think about my wife's grandmother, Luker, who's just a dear matriarch in our family. She lived in Goodwater, Alabama, and she taught grade school to everybody that came through there for 30 years. And if she were alive today, she'd send $30 a month because she loved her Auburn Tigers, and she loved to come sit in Section 5 with her sister, and it was the highlight of her year, and her 6-8 times she could do that. Well, we're not going to build a system that grandmother Luker can't participate in.
Right.
And we've got that coming, and he'll be announcing it and maybe in the next couple of weeks. So if you go to our website, you won't see it today, but just keep watching, because it'll also kind of signal the start of our caravan, where we're going to actually go to a lot of the Auburn alumni clubs throughout the country. And we're going to pick either Saturday or Sunday when our talent's available here after finals, but before football season starts. We're going to start hitting the road. And before, we couldn't do that. We couldn't take a student athlete and bring them to Nashville and bring 10 of them to an event. We can now. And we'll use that to help drive more subscriptions and really drive the connection between Auburn people and the young men and women who are also Auburn people, that we get to help form them, not just on that field and not just in the gym, but you get to now meet them and mentor them. And we have a mentor. Part of our new launch will be a mentor tab where mentors can offer to raise their hand and say, hey, I'm a building science graduate. I got 10 years experience. If there's anybody in the talent pool that needs a mentor in building science, let's connect. And the same is true of the student athletes. Hey, I'm going to graduate in nursing and I'm moving to Charlotte. Is there any nurses in Charlotte that I might want to be mentored by? So that is what NIL Auburn really is at the heart of what we're doing.
Perfect. Listen, I think it's really exciting that you guys are implementing that $30 level to help everybody make a play for Auburn this fall. So I want to encourage everybody to get involved, get signed up immediately. Check that NIL Auburn website as soon as that goes live. If you've got it and you can spare $30 a month to help Auburn reach that next level of NIL funding, let's all get together as an Auburn family and get that done. Rick, I really want to thank you for taking some time to tell us about NIL Auburn today. We're looking forward to doing big things with you guys. So thanks for joining me.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mike. And we really appreciate you spreading the word for us. And if we can do anything for any subscriber or for you, just pick up the phone and call, and we'll be pleased to help you.
Well, that's it for another great edition of Building Rapport, NIL Auburn edition. Look, we want you guys to get involved. Please visit nilauburn.com, get signed up today, help donate, and make sure that Auburn athletes get fair market value for everything NIL. Thanks, guys. We're signing off. As always, War Eagle.